Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcellus Joyner, past chair of REMCo, or better way to put it, I was the pandemic chair for REMCo. Uh, we are here today with Viviette White, aka Lady V, and we are here for another episode of Blackademia and Hip-Hop Culture. At this time, I'm going to let Lady V introduce herself.
Okay, I like to be called Lady B. That was a name I carried for a long time back in high school in the 80s when I grew up around the hip hop culture. And we all had something in front of our name, like a Mr., a Sir, a Miss, a Lady, Duchess, whatever it would be, a title in front of our initial. So I will be Lady V today, but my name is Viviette White, and I'm the branch manager at the Hickory Grove Library, Charlotte Mecklenburg Library in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm glad to be here and have this conversation.
All right. All right. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So we're going to jump right in. We'll start off with the first question. How has hip hop influenced the way you curate and recommend books or music to library patrons?
Well, we have a very diverse audience in Charlotte. So there are a lot of people who are new to hip hop because hip hop has been around a long time, as you know, for decades. And there's a new hip hop culture. And I like to introduce people to the stuff I grew up on, like Queen Latifah and Moni Love, and even like going back to Rakim and so there are a lot of artists that a lot of the newer artists are not familiar with, and we have great streaming services at the library where you can get you know listening you can listen to how it sounded versus the new artists of today. So it's nice to present free resources like Freegal and Hoopla to our audiences to get licensed music through the library for free. And they can take a history tour down hip hop lane and listen to all the artists that are from the back in the day, as we would say. But I love recommending books, especially I would say like poetry books, but books that inspire the licks and lyrics in today's rap culture. Because a lot of times people forget that poetry is rap
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. And so it goes hand in hand. So a lot of times when young people come in and say they want to be a rapper or they are interested in the music industry, and I always tell them, have you ever read poetry, read it aloud, read it in different language or verses, um, in different, I would say, tones and pitches, and get your voice accustomed to rhyming. So poetry is the best way to present that.
Yeah. I loved your answer. And when you say back in the day, Rakim to me is how can I put it? That was within to me that first 20 years of hip hop. So he's one of those MCs whose rhyme skills took rapping to another level. Once he started rapping, other people had to catch up and it changed. But because I remember my first introduction to hip hop was actually The Message.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I was like,
Grandmaster Flash
yeah,
and
I was
the
3 or 4 years
Pie.
old.
Thank you.
I was 3 or 4 years old, and that was the first rap song I ever heard was The
Right.
Message.
Yeah.
But also to your point about poetry, a lot of people, I think Gil Scott Heron gets lost in the fold because Gil Scott Heron was that transition between strictly poetry, funk music, and rap. It kind of it lives in the mixture of those three. So I don't know uh uh if you've referred anyone to him before, but I think he's uh an excellent artist for someone who's inspiring to be a rapper or a poet.
Right.
All right, so we're gonna
Interesting. you said that because a lot of the picture books, our children's books that we bring to story time, a lot of them have poetry or messages in there that can be wrapped. And some of our storytellers do wrap in story time. So we present, the hip hop culture in a various amount of platforms, not just as a record or a listening connection, but as a book in a story time. So yeah, hip hop is transcended many platforms, and I'm so glad that it is still alive and kicking.
In what ways do you incorporate hip hop culture into library programs or events to engage the community?
Well, like I mentioned, the I used to do story time at several libraries here in Charlotte. I worked at the University City branch, Allegra Westbrook's branch, North County branch, and currently now I'm at Hickory Grove. And in all of those environments, I have had audiences of children and parents who are familiar with rapping, or I would say the hip hop generation, and they enjoy when I would read a story in rap, and also play rap music to dance to, be it with scarves or bubbles or shakers. A lot of kids got into story time and activity movement when they heard a song that was popular, and if you've ever been to a story time or know of a traditional library story time, you open up with a song like Open Shut Them, and then you read a book and you have some motion and hand play, and then you read another book and then you close. So sometimes um, I would have incorporated a hip hop or a current song that the kids could dance to and rap to. Of course, a G version,
Of
and
course.
not, you know what I mean, very appropriate for mixed audiences in the library, age wise. So,
Well, I think that's awesome as well because, you know, nowadays there it isn't guaranteed that there's arts at school. So that sounds like your story time was a mixture of story time as well as a mixture of music
mhm.
and arts. So if they're not getting it at their local at their own school, they're at least getting it. They were getting it at the library and during that story time.
Exactly. And then also we have local performers who we would ask to come to the library and do different workshops with the kids. We did have a dance group that was like a hip hop ballet, and they performed at a couple of our library branches. And then we also promote new artists who are in our communities who are looking for a space to present and to basically sell themselves and get themselves noted, because that's how rappers have to start, and any performer, you have to find an audience and then be noticed. And of course now we have greatness in a lot of neighborhoods. A lot of people don't know about certain local artists, but they know about more popular ones. But we have a lot
Right.
of local very talented artists right here, and we like to showcase those people in our libraries.
Okay. Can you share a specific instance where hip hop played a role in fostering a sense of inclusivity and diversity within the library?
Yes. So we had a local artist who was actually a performance artist. He did a workshop with some of our high school students, and they were interested in becoming rappers, performers, DJs. Um, he actually brought like a turntable setup, and they were able to have a hands-on workshop with him. So it worked very well. And then we also encourage people to, if they know an artist, share the artist. So we have places where in our libraries they can give it's like a suggestion box, so they put a slip of paper or information about the local artists that they would like to see perform or share at our library branches. So that's a way that we keep connected. And we also have like website, the cmlibrary.org has a website where you can share or suggest an artist or even a book. So there's a lot of interaction with us in the community.
Okay. Okay. How do you navigate potential challenges and controversies related to hip hop content in a library setting?
Well, that goes a long way because a lot of people like to pull or ban books, and I'm one that believes in reading freely is
Mhm.
something that we all should be able to do, regardless of the message or the topic title of the book. Um, the information in a book is shared with that individual that's reading it. It's not for debate or someone to say, "Oh, I can't believe you all have this content in your library." Well, you have the option of not checking it out, but letting someone else who would like to check it out enjoy it and have their own opinion of it. So we've had some people, against maybe uh, rap or artists that do hip hop and see it as a negative because it's been stigmatized in the media as something negative and not necessarily that's true. So they'll say, well, we don't agree with this artist. Why do you have their book? Why do we have their biography? There's some artists who have done some horrible things, but we don't dismiss the fact that other people need to know about their story too. So as far as combative, we haven't had too many people say, I don't agree with a specific artist and pull the book from the shelves or take it out of the listening feed. But
Mhm.
a few people, especially parents of younger children, they're not encouraging their children to read curse lines in lyrics or lines in lyrics that might be against or attack women sexually. So I understand that, but the library, like I said, is the free space, so we are able to house this information and share it freely.
Yeah, yes, it is. As a matter of fact, one of the laws of the library is that there is a book. And to paraphrase, there is a book for everyone, but to paraphrase that there is content for everyone at the library. It's very, and specifically, the public library. The public library is the college for the common man. So, in order to learn about our entire story, we need to have content that varies and is accessible. Um, has your has wait a minute, I've lost my place. Just has your personal connection to hip hop impacted your approach to promoting literacy, education within the library?
Um, I still have a very personal connection because some of my friends are DJs. And I'm talking
Okay.
about people that are in their 50s. I'm 56. So the people I went to school with back in 1980s, in that era, they are all mature adults now. And some of them are working as DJs. They work at clubs. They continue to provide that energy of a career for younger people. And I love that because they do it based on the passion they had back when they were 15, 16 years old. And now I see young people thinking, is this something that's still a career? Yes, it is. I mean, it's a very lucrative career, actually. I think I've given a lot of young people support when it comes to providing them with something that their parents might dismiss. Some people say, "Oh, I want to be a hip hop artist," and then they get slapped by their family saying, "Oh, that's not a real career." But I'm like, it is. I mean, you don't just have to make millions of dollars. That's not a legacy. You can provide yourself with a very high paying DJ job or become a hip hop artist. Of course, everyone's not going to be a Jay-Z. Everyone's not,
Right.
but you never know. There has to be someone to follow in those footsteps. So one day we will have more Jay-Z type people, but they have to be encouraged to do the work. So that's
Right.
why through employment opportunities, working with the community colleges and the local schools, we encourage kids to provide professionals who are DJs, rappers, artists, singers, dancers, provide them with those connections. And that's what I love about the library. We workforce development in every way. People come in here looking for jobs, looking for connections, and people are always dropping off either like business cards or information where other people can connect to. And I love to see that on someone's job application, they can put, yes, I DJ, or yes, I am an artist and I'm looking for work. It's got to be work out there for them. And I love that the library can support that.
No, I think with you and myself, we actually kind of grew up along with hip hop.
Mhm.
So w during that time, we're just seeing the DJ and the rapper,
Mhm.
and the finished end of the product. But technology and social media has come such a long way now, so we've actually seen the window into what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
And as you said, there's different ways to be in the business without having to be the person out front.
exactly.
Um,
There's a business side to it.
oh
A
yes.
lot of people forget that you have to market and manage yourself when you're an artist. You need a team, you need legal representation, you need a name for yourself.
Hmm.
You also have to know about the venues to play at. How much are they going to cut into your budget when
Hmm.
you perform? Like how much do you have to give that venue when you step on stage? And how much are you paying your road crew? There's a lot of things that go into just balancing your career. And that's the thing. A lot of people say, I want to be an artist or, a DJ. And right away they think, oh, it's going to come to me so quickly because look at this person. Look at how easy it was. It's not that easy.
Right.
I'm like, not every job comes that quickly. So it takes
I-
work and
And
hustle.
I think I want to say, and this is just my personal opinion, engineers who work in the rap industry probably have the longevity, probably longer than some of the artists. Like I said, we weren't seeing behind the scenes as rap was developing. So artists or rappers who seem to have disappeared or you thought had disappeared, we see all these reality shows or these
Mhm.
behind the scene documentaries and come to find out they have engineered or produced a bunch of different artists and not just rap artists, even pop artists. So, there's it's grown so much. There's different avenues that you can go down if you have the love for the music. If you're not that talent with the wordplay, you don't necessarily have to be. You can have a love for it and go into a different aspect of it. Yeah. How do you balance preserving the traditional role of a library with embracing the evolving cultural landscape, especially in relation to hip hop? And I think you may have touched on it before, but if you would like to elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah. Now, we know the traditional role of the library is to kind of keep everyone quiet in the building and just make sure everyone's got their books and their laptops and everyone's good. But that's not what the library is now. Now that everyone is coming to the library for not just books, I always tell them a library is a library. And I always consider myself a librarian because people come in asking me questions about their education, how to find jobs, how to find resources for veterans, how to surface navigate when they're new re-entering society about after being incarcerated. So there are a lot of avenues that the library has taken from the so-called traditional sense. And then when we evolve into this new landscape where everything is heightened with political angst and food deprivation and people that are living paycheck to paycheck and having mouths to feed at home and not knowing where that next food is coming from. The resources that the library contributes to the community is it's a lifeline. Um, there's a lot of involvement with I know a lot of people say, well, if these hip hop artists are making so much money, why don't they contribute back to the neighborhood? But as we were saying before, it's a hustle. You know, everything you see that a hip hop artist has, some of it is rented, leased, and borrowed,
Oh yeah.
including the sneakers on their feet. It's a it's all about marketing. And when companies like record labels, they own the artist's name, it all comes down to, well, what kind of clothes are we going to put on this person, the hairstyles, the jewelry they're wearing, the accessories, to just the voice you're listening to is something that you like, but you also are, it's a package. So when you go to concerts, you see banners for Adidas, Nike, drinks, whatever, what have you, but all that's attached to making that artist on stage who you're paying for. So when we come back to that question about how balancing and preserving traditional library spaces and coming up with the cultural environment now, it's about how are we getting people in the library to come to these programs that might feature a local artist? Like, what's going to be our way of smoothing people to say, oh, this might be a good program? Sometimes you got to feed people. And I mean, really, you got to bring in more than chips and drinks.
Yeah.
But we have elevated our library spaces so that there is more technology, more, I wouldn't say AI generated programs, but things that not just younger people would enjoy, but older people would have more accessibility to. We've even provided people with extra time on computers in order to look up information. There used to be a time when libraries didn't have computers or free Wi-Fi. Now that has expanded. People are able to be in libraries and actually run their businesses from libraries, set up meetings, use study rooms, and some libraries have loaner laptops and like sound equipment. So we're able to give people like not just a space, but also materials they can use to take with them so that they can produce in whatever, extension of their artistic journey is. We have it actually at the library for free, which is great.
That makes me wonder what the statistic would be for artists who have come to a public library and talked to the business librarian about how to organize their business because we have so much access to information now.
Mhm.
We know the stories of some of our biggest artists, how they started out and maybe their first three or four albums were not they were not seeing the profits because they didn't know the business side of it. And
Right.
unfortunately, through experience and being taken advantage of, that's how they learned the business. But we also have this new generation coming now who actually got knew that information going in and approached their business acumen in a different way.
Mhm.
Master P was probably to me the how can I put I guess I would say the Ray Charles of the hip hop of hip hop because Ray Charles had a pivotal contract where he got to keep his masters. He kept the majority of um of the proceeds that came from that major contract he signed. Um and so much so up until the day no one can use his music
Mhm.
without the permission of his estate.
Mhm.
But Master P, he approached it in a different way. He was very much, very much. over every aspect of his business. And I think the from that point when he entered into hip hop, so those who came after him, some of those who came after him, took to the business side and were able to build a business acumen where we won't be hearing stories about them when they're in their 50s and 60s talking about how they are dead broke or they were taken advantage of because they knew what they needed to do going in. So I just wonder what that number may look like now with people having access to information that they have. How are they approaching if they're coming into the library and talking to a business librarian, or how many have actually done that, and how is it panned out for them? Just something to think about. But
And we have a lot of business entrepreneur books in the library, as well as some classes that librarians have facilitated. So yeah, some libraries do have a business librarian, but in most cases we have staff who just they'll look in our catalog to see what we have on site and present the person with books on entrepreneurship, books on how to start a business, books to prevent, people from taking your company. Like some people have started companies already, and they just need to have their, everything checked, as including their copyrights and their naming, branding as well. So we have books and online resources for that. Well, it's a good
right.
thing. Yeah.
How do you see the future intersection of hip hop and library services evolving, and what role do you envision yourself playing in that development?
Well, I feel the way hip hop has transcended the different cultures now. We have even K-pop groups doing rap, and we have all cultures involved in rap and hip hop culture. So it's more than just trying to keep it alive. It's more like opening up more doors for more people. Back in the day, I remember we had people who were intimidated by women rappers joining the game, and they were phenomenal. I mean, Queen Latifah, I mean, she's like one of my favorite. And when we look at that growth of women in rap and also people of other besides black people, because a lot of people remember that for a while we didn't have rappers who were white or Indian or Asian. So opening those doors and making it a possibility, that is what I love seeing. That everything has been more of a intersection of life, with people telling their stories from their cultures in rap. Because for a long time we've been talking about our Black lives in rap stories, but now we're seeing other lives in these rap stories, and sometimes they're similar to ours.
Yeah.
Um, so and then as far as that intersection part, that is what I mean by the cultural vibe, I guess, the livelihood or the vividness of what makes rap so open. Everybody can do it. Everywhere in the globe, you will know somebody saying a lyric or reading a rap song or listening to it on a radio. Every part of the globe. This is transcendent of all cultures. So
Yes, I'm glad you made that point because I think with the emergence of reggaeton and um what I'm trying to think of um what do they call African hip hop at the moment? What's the
oh, I'm a piano, or it's like that. That's the style. I'm not saying the word right, but it's I'm a piano
hmm
and Tyler, Make me wanna. She brings
Afro beats.
Afro beats, exactly.
Yes.
So a lot of the the African in, ancestry that we have is in our music, and
Hmm.
the Africans that are coming up now, it's like they're bringing us back to what we started at.
Oh yes. Like
When
even if I don't understand, completely understand the artist,
Mhm,
there is a feel to the music where it's like
mhm.
I'm in the pocket with it. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? It's just like I don't have to understand everything he's saying,
yeah.
but
So
I
I
feel it
love
because it's already in there.
I love Afro beats. I love the fact that we are culturally expressive, and we always have. I mean, from the time we were in churches, through our parents sitting next to us and in the pews in a service and clapping to the beats of the musicians up by the pulpit, those were our Afro beats. And
Mhm.
now we can see how that spirit, spiritual connection and our African connections all combine. We have jazz, classical, modern, all that R&B is infused in what we're doing right now in today's generation. It's like a collective of sounds, and it's a great expression of our African heritage. And I enjoy that everybody is celebrating that.
Are there any specific hip hop artists or subgenres that you feel a deep connection to, and why do they resonate with you on a personal level?
Well, I mentioned I love Queen Latifah. She brought about um, women's rappers, the voices of women. Now, today, we have Megan Thee Stallion, who I love. And I love that all of these women are taking control of their bodies. Because before, we kind of had to go into the game wearing baggy clothes and looking like a dude and being thug and hard. But people like Mary J. Blige, she was like, I'm not doing that no more. You're going to see all of me, all of my skin, all of my female, my womanhood. I'm going to put on my wigs and come out hard and talk about the struggles and the victories of being a woman. And she did that in her rap. um Megan Thee Stallion, exactly the same thing, different generation, but showing that body of like, this is me. I'm a proud woman. I am gonna take control over how you talk to me and what you say to me. How my body looks is my business. And I just love the body positivity, because for so long, male rappers have been talking about female bodies and dissecting them and telling us how to move and how big we should be and how much we should give to them. And now women are saying, "No, I'm taking this back and I'm going to use it, and you're going to like it." So I cleaned it up,
Yeah.
but you get the drift. Um, for so long, I have enjoyed listening to rap, but for me as a woman, listening to male rappers strip down my sex, that's not cool, because I'm not going to say those lyrics. I hear a male rapper would say the lyrics about, you know, doing things to my body, but I don't want those things done to my body. So that's why I said the women rappers have taken the mic and said, this is what I can do with my body. You're going to like it the way I present it. And, respect me. You know, we talk about how Aretha Franklin made RESPECT the most popular anthem of the women's rights movement. But when we hear Queen Latifah flip it, and it's like, UNITY, I'm a black queen from here to
Mhm.
eternity. So it's like she's representing what Aretha and all those other black women talked about back when women's voices weren't really heard or respected. And now I feel like there's more respect in our voices, in our bodies, and in what we want to see for future women in the rap game.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Latifah because I think I kind of feel that she has passed the baton to Rhapsody, who
Yes.
is a North
Mhm.
Carolina rapper straight out of Snow Hill.
Yes.
Um, she I think it was at the Kennedy Center Honors where she uh, uh, honored Queen Latifah
Mhm.
and like in my personal opinion, I think she's probably one of the best lyricists,
Mhm.
period, regardless of whether she's a female or male. She's
Agreed.
probably one of the best lyricists out right now. As well as definitely, you have such greats as MC Light, but
Oh yeah.
I could take it all the way back to Shyla Rock.
There you go.
Funky four plus one more.
Take it back.
Also, Boss who passed away, I think a couple of weeks ago. She was a great, very, very intense lyrical artist. Kind of probably scared a couple of dudes too, because she was just straightforward with her lyrics, and it wasn't she doesn't get the respect that she deserved because everything that you just mentioned, like her lyrics and the way she carried herself was that at that time in the late 80s and early 90s. So her name has kind of got lost in the fold for a couple of years, but definitely want to say RIP to Boss.
Mhm.
Um, so we have our final question coming up. Can you discuss any positive changes or personal growth that you attribute, at least in part, to the influence of hip hop in your life?
Yes, I've pushed myself to be a lady first and to to give homage to Queen Latifah's ladies first. I have developed a mentor towards other young women in my profession as a librarian. Um, I feel that I push myself to not go over the edge. I'm sorry I'm being so lyrical today, but I have had times where I was feeling like I was going to lose my head. But I feel that even in my dress and in my swagger, in my conversations with people, especially the young people, I have a lot of young teens and preteens who come in the library, and their parents sometimes are with them, pushing them to read certain books. And sometimes they're in here looking for lists of books that they have to read for school. And I always say, what do you like? And sometimes the parents are like, oh, they have to read this, they have to be on this reading level. I want them to only read this type of book. I said, but what I want to know is what they like, because everything in a book that is chosen by a school, and hard to say chosen by parents, is not the book that is meant for that child. So a lot of times I have conversations with students and just tell them how I developed as a person. And sometimes we have so many common denominators between us. And age has nothing to do with it. It just has to do with life. Um, I grew up in a single parent home. A lot of kids can relate to that. I had a lot of like people in my high school who were from different uh, backgrounds, Jewish, Arab, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Jamaican. It was very blended. The community that I grew up in was very diverse. And I love meeting people who have that connection with diversity, because hip hop is diversity. Um, because everyone did not grow up on the same block or the same street, but we can definitely rhyme about how that growth made us feel, how certain things in the news made us feel, how
Mhm.
certain love and breakups made us feel, how society makes us feel, how hair makes us feel, how economy, how having money and having no money make us feel. That's what rap is about. it's a conversation. And when you have conversations with teenagers, I swear you can learn so much. You can have a rap made from their adventures in school because their teens go through so much now. But usually when I think of the complex nature of hip hop, it's not that complex because it's as easy as speaking to a child. You know, when you say something to a child, you kind of open up and you become youthful yourself. Rap is free. It's hip hop culture is fluid. It's easy. It's like painting. You know, you blend the colors and you just make a masterpiece. And that's how hip hop is. You just blend your voice, blend your thoughts and your stories, and it's a masterpiece.
I totally agree. Me and my father were having a conversation about music in general, and country music is it's the same way. Because when you get to the heart of it, it's just telling a story about where you come
That's
from.
all it is.
Just talking about what you've gone through, your experiences. It may have a little flavor to it depending on what part of the country you're from or where you live, but it still is music in general at its heart is storytelling and
Mm.
storytelling of your culture or your subculture or your or where you're from, you know.
And we all have stories. I mean, riding on the subway for several years, going back and forth to school, going back and forth to work in New York, that I could tell millions of stories based on what I saw on the subway, on the conversations I saw and heard on the train, the altercations that I've seen. You know, there's so many things that I witnessed growing up in New York. And that's why I said when people want to be rappers or artists, just think about the stories that you've experienced and things that you've seen. And that's your story. That's your content for what you're going to write or sing about. That's your content, your life.
Exactly, exactly. All right, Lady V. So,
Mhm.
um, do you mind telling us what area from New York you are that you were from originally?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn. All
That's
right,
right.
Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn.
That's right.
So, at this point in our interview, I'm going to ask you if you want to give some shout outs to any MCs that you know that can be major label artists. They could be people you grew up with that, like as you mentioned, who are in the business. DJs, just anybody from around your way from Brooklyn or maybe even from Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to give a shout out to George McQueen in Durham, North Carolina. He's a DJ up there. He's my kindergarten childhood friend from the neighborhood. Also, Richard Gillian, Brooklyn Rich. He's a DJ in New York City. And Mondo Beats, Armando Colon. I believe he's living in the Georgia area. He is doing his thing, making music. You'll hear his soundtrack on BMF, and I think he did a few things on the. I think he was on The Shy, if I'm not mistaken. But he's done a lot of soundtracks for popular urban series and movies. So yeah, shout out to Mondo Beats, Armando, back in the day in high school, music and art all the way. We always say music and art high school. A lot of people don't know us, but they know us. Music and art high school is made famous by the Fame movie.
All right.
If you know Fame, our school is a combination of LaGuardia High School for Music and the Performing Arts. And music and art was the castle on the hill in Harlem. And we all had very unique talents. Some of us were, I was a violinist.
Oh,
Yeah,
all
um,
right.
exactly.
What
You,
do you think about black violin?
I
Have you
love
ever You love
Yes,
them?
they came to Charlotte
Oh
and they were
man,
phenomenal.
those dudes are awesome.
And that's what I was gonna say. When I went to high school, a lot of these artists and rappers were there. Um, the We had this group, Loving It Crew, LIC. They were called Loving It Crew, and they were created in my high school of music and art.
Wow.
If you know Dana Dane, he went to music and art as well. Um, Slick Rick, they were M&A for life. That's what we say. And so, if you look at the history of our school, Billy D. Williams was also an alum. We had actors, dancers, Debbie Allen. I mean, I could just go on and on. So, I was always around artists growing up. Hip hop was a part of just who we were. With the big hoop earrings, I kind of
Hmm.
wear a pair today, double slide if you notice, hoops all the way. Sometimes we had our names in there with the name ring, the name belt. It's funny because I dug through some old boxes and I found my old VV name belt, or Vivi, and
Uh-oh.
I was like, I gotta wear this. I wore it one Halloween, and people were like, yo, you still have your belt? I said, I will always have my name belt. I will always have that. It was a part of me. It's a part of our how we grew up. You
Oh
know.
man, that's awesome. Okay, before we go,
Mhm.
who's your top five?
For artists or hip.
Yes, hip hop
Okay,
artists.
so Queen Latifah, MC Light. Um, I love. It's interesting. I love the Force MDs. Because they bridge singing and rapping. Um, I also loved well, I love Jay-Z. I'm sorry. I will always love Jay-Z. And um my number one my number one is Biggie.
Okay.
Yeah, rest in peace, but Biggie.
R.I.P. Big. I didn't get to meet him, but my freshman year at North Carolina A&T, the week of homecoming, him and Junior Mafia were in the cafeteria, so we actually got to see them. Just kind of walk through. My whole freshman year was crazy with hip hop. Our concert that homecoming was Ice Cube, Yo Yo, Tupac. So I got to
Okay.
see Tupac at least one time in concert. Who else was there? The Brad and Jermaine Dupri. And so Wu-Tang was not Wu-Tang that they are now, but so everybody that I met and knew from New York my freshman year, they kept talking about this group, and we were, like we had never heard of them down here, and they came to a club called Club DYH. And they weren't even they weren't the main group. It was the Alcoholics. They actually opened up for the Alcoholics. So that's a little bit of hip hop history that Wu-Tang toured with the Alcoholics and opened. They were the opening group for the Alcoholics. So I actually got to see Wu-Tang before they blew up because after they did that club uh, show, it was like a month and a half later, and then 36 Chambers came out, and we were like, oh my God, we got to see them before they blew up.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of people forget that these people were in the neighborhood. I know they were at in my lunch cafeteria in high school. Dana Dane and his crew, they would be banging on the lunch tables, spitting. They'd be like boom, 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 and then a rap would come out, and everybody in the cafeteria would just start watching them and say, "Whoa, whoa," and they would be throwing out some hot lyrics. And this was way before anyone knew who they were. Um, I gotta tell you, it's like I think the high school back in the 80s was the birthplace of the hip hop of today. just the cafeteria scene where everyone's just loose and having fun and words are flying. Um, a lot of people always talk about the your mama jokes, but a lot of that was a part of the yo mama part was enwrapped in a different way,
Hmm.
because anytime you're talking about somebody dissing somebody, you're talking about their shoes, their clothes, their face, the shape of their eyes, or whatever. It's like, yeah, it goes back to that, you know,
Playing the dozens, but with
playing
lyrics.
the dozens. Exactly. That's exactly where that came from. So, we always talk about kids teasing each other. Well, rap, we were teasing each other in rap.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, Lady V, it has been a pleasure. I thank you for being with us today and talking about the intersection of hip hop and academics and hip hop culture. We thank you for
Great.
coming out.
I had a great time. It was a great time to talk about it. I think we need this type of uplift now and then. I hope that we can open this up to more uh, people and discussions and bring those discussions to the library because this is where the community thrives. And I'm sure they'd like to have a discussion about hip hop. This is awesome.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And with that, we will conclude our interview.